It's the first half of the 5th century. 10 years have passed since Shahanshah Bahram of the Sasanian Empire dethroned the inept king of Armenia and imposed direct rule over the province. To accomplish this, he installed the office of Mazban, a form of warden to the border satrapies of the empire. This move was even encouraged by the Armenian nobility, with whom King Artaxias was unable to cooperate. Armenians were a Christian minority within the vast, predominantly Zoroastrian Sassanid Empire, and though they were frequently repressed by Bahram's administration, especially during his early reign, their divergent and well-entrenched religious beliefs remained relatively well preserved. Things started to change when Bahram died in 438 and was replaced by his son Yazdegerd. He initially followed his father's policy of moderate taxation and permissive attitude towards Persian nobility, yet it soon became obvious that Yazdegerd was an ambitious and hot-tempered ruler, dreaming of the successes of renowned Cyrus the Great, Achaemenid founder of the First Persian Empire. Although one could argue that a cold-blooded and calculating ruler would be a better fit for the Persians, Yazdegerd was quite a successful military leader. In his early years, he attacked the Eastern Roman Empire, an arch-rival to the west. His forces ravaged the Roman borderlands, burning cities and seizing captives, as Roman Emperor Theodosius was unable to mount a viable defense, being busy fighting the Vandals in North Africa. Yazdegerd eventually came to terms with the Romans and agreed to cease his aggression upon being offered a substantial amount of gold. Following this early success, Yazdegerd campaigned in the east, securing his borders against Hephthalites and Kidarites. Concurrently, he followed an internal policy to tighten his grip over the empire's provinces and centralize his government. His primary tool to achieve this was the persecution of religious minorities within the empire and forced conversions to Zoroastrianism, which essentially was the state religion of the Sassanids. Yazdegerd himself was a devoted Zoroastrian, yet his piety most likely wasn't the main reason for his religious policy. There's a good chance that he was aware of the crucial role faith had in leading the masses. One religion across the empire meant fewer problems with minorities, and the Sassanid king who ruled over many tribes and states was without doubt wise enough to realize this. One such minority Yazdegerd was committed to convert were the Armenians inhabiting the northwestern part of the Sassanid Empire. The border province of Persian Armenia was valuable not only for economic reasons, but mostly for its strategic location. Considering its predominantly Christian population, the Persian king was concerned for its possible political drift towards their main rival, the Eastern Roman Empire, with which the Armenians not only shared the same religion, but also many customs. When it became clear that the king's conversion efforts didn't yield desirable results, his officials in Armenia promulgated an official edict to renounce Roman ways, along with their faith in favor of the Persian religion. As a result of Yazdegerd's actions, a general assembly in Artashat was held in 449, where the most influential Armenian aristocracy, nobility, and clergy gathered to discuss the edict and consider their response. Eventually, they sent an envoy to the Sassanid capital of Ctesiphon with a courteous message assuring Yazdegerd of their lasting loyalty, yet refusing to abandon their faith. Unsurprisingly, this answer enraged the Persian king, who immediately sent 700 Zoroastrian priests to the unruly province with a mission to suppress Christianity. Yet they had a rather arduous time upon entering Armenia, to say the very least. Yazdegerd found himself in trouble, as his rash actions in Armenia quickly led to a popular uprising. Hard-pressed by the Persian king, the Armenian commoners could no longer bear Sassanid persecution and mounted a widespread armed resistance, electing one of their leading aristocrats, Vardan Mamikonian, as supreme commander of their assembling forces. The Armenians dispatched a message to the Byzantine court seeking aid in their war with the Sassanids. Yet the Roman world was far more concerned with the rising Hunnic menace led by Attila to risk another war with Sassanid Persia, and thus having to fight on two fronts. Seeking help with their campaign elsewhere, Armenian rebels parleyed with the northern tribes of Caucasus, hoping to gain much-needed support. Upon learning about the Armenian disobedience, Yazdegerd made a smart move to divide the insurgents by granting them religious freedom and assuring general amnesty for those who dared to oppose the King of Kings. This proved to be a good tactic, as one of the Armenian factions under Governor Vasak of Siunik defected to the Persian side. Yet Vardan's supporters doubted the sincerity of the crown, and hostilities seemed inevitable. In spring of the year 451, an auxiliary Sassanid force crossed the Arax River and moved north through Armenian defiles in order to cut off Vardan's rebellion from the expected support of the northern border tribes. Meanwhile, King Yazdegerd ordered the assembly of his main army in Mesopotamia. Vardan's troops, with no hope of being reinforced by either the Romans or allies to the north, marched into the Avarayr plain and set a camp near the city of Nakhchivan. Even without the help of Vasak's units, who switched sides, Vardan's force, at least according to sources, counted more than 50,000 men, yet was predominantly comprised of armed peasants. Armenian nobility formed the mounted part of his army, both light and heavy cavalrymen who were well equipped and decently armored, with plenty of experience serving the Persian king in his eastern campaigns. It is said that Vardan's troops were accompanied by a large number of clergy who conducted services and encouraged the soldiers. On the 26th of May, a huge Sassanid army reached the plain and began deployment on the southern side of the small rivulet, flowing through the battlefield. Although sources state that the Persian side counted 300,000 men, it's far more likely that their force barely doubled the Armenian troops. Apart from light and heavy infantry, which formed the bulk of the Persian force, the flanks were guarded by cavalry, with the elite Zaydin cataphract cavalry modeled after the elite immortal units of the Achaemenid era occupying the left flank. Moreover, the Persians had a considerable number of war elephants reinforcing the center of their array. The battle started with some skirmishes and archer volleys. Some units of the Persian left contingent crossed the river and attacked the Armenian left flank. Soon the cataphract cavalry joined the fight, inflicting heavy damage, turning this early attack to their favor. Seeing this, Vardan led his best mounted troops forward and struck the Persian right, pushing them back. Subsequently, seeing the initial success of their leader, the Armenians rushed through the center, engaging the Persian units so they were unable to aid their crumbling right side. Full-scale fighting commenced across the battlefield. While both belligerents bled themselves out on the left, Vardan routed the remainder of the Persian right flank, and despite his own losses, attacked the second line of the Persian center. At which point, both sides suffered considerable losses, but the battle seemed to be far from concluding. Eventually, the Median Guard, initially ordered to watch the Persian camp, advanced and struck Vardan's surprised flank, surrounding it. The battle-frenzied Armenian leader found himself in a hopeless position, unable to retreat, and fiercely fought to the last man. Yet the death of their supreme commander didn't cause the rest of his army to rout. The Persians pushed through the center and left, but the Armenian troops held their ground firmly. It was not until late evening, when the Armenian losses grew to the critical point where the battle line started to break here and there, yielding to the sheer numbers of the enemy, and eventually the remainder of their forces were either routed or were taken into captivity. The battle was bloody. On both sides, casualties reached tens of thousands. For every Persian dead, there was a fallen Armenian. It was a crucial blow, especially for the Armenian nobility, as entire clans lay dead on the battlefield. Sassanid intervention in Armenia proved to be a costly endeavor. Even though the flower of Armenian nobility was killed and some of the clergy were imprisoned, the bloody encounter on the Avarayr plain didn't hinder Armenian efforts to keep their identity. Although Yazdegerd's actions eventually tore the Armenian Church from the main course of Roman Christianity, his goal to push the province into Zoroastrianism failed. Vardan Mamikonian was replaced by his nephew Vahan, who continued the Armenian efforts to keep their identity. 30 years later, a Treaty of Novarshak was signed, guaranteeing the autonomy and preserving religious freedom in Armenia for the next 200 years.